Today I'm launching a self-care pet collection game called Void Pet that's out on the Apple and Google Play Store because React Native is a beautiful piece of technology if you close your eyes. Welcome to Voidlog Index 6. This is a series where I share the business and development process of building a billion-dollar unicorn company called Void Pet. Before I talk about the app, I want to talk about how it came to be, because for the last 13 months, I wasn't working on an app. I was working on a web game. The motivation for this project came from depression. This time not related to AngularJS, but related to my co-founder, Linda. She drew monsters to represent her emotions, so naturally it was things like sad, anger, envy, and these absolutely blew up on TikTok and converted to a Discord of over 100,000 members. The monster drawings had 5 evolutions, and everyone got excited about the potential existence of a new game that reminded them of Pokemon. The only problem was there was no game, and neither Linda nor I had any experience making games, unless you want to count the blackjack game I made in Java Swing for my Intro to Computer Science class that garnered my deep disgust for building UIs in Java. However, we did have experience making websites and playing League of Legends, Magic the Gathering, World of Warcraft, Pokemon, and we figured that was enough to at least try to make a web game. Fast forward to March, April, May of last year, and we released a Void Pet web game that we somewhat considered to be a MVP. I say somewhat because the state of the game at the time was similar to the first town in Pokemon, where you kind of beat it after an hour and you just go on with your life. So it was closer to a wheel than it was really a skateboard. And unfortunately, probably not even a car wheel. Probably more like a skateboard wheel. We were very ambitious and we wanted to make a multiplayer pet collection game as a team of 2, and we thought we'd be able to pull it off by compromising on the graphics and making them simpler in 2D. This is equivalent of looking at a F-150 jet made by thousands of people and saying that you can make it better in 2 months using recycled paper to save the turtles. The mission is honorable, but when it gets time to actually taking a sip out of your drink and your straw gets all wet and slimy, you kind of just wish you had an F-150 jet. Lots of people ended up trying the MVP, and some of them even gave us money, but except for around 5,000 or so super loyal fans, most people churned because the game didn't have much depth and it just wasn't very polished. This was pretty frustrating because I like to be able to build an MVP in 1 to 2 months, launch it, see if it has any legs, and go from there. But with a game, it's so hard to build anything usable in a month with just 2 people that it feels like that launch didn't really test anything other than the game needed more work before I could even figure out if the game idea was any good. If I feel like the core idea for an MVP just isn't any good, I will abandon it with remorse. But in this situation, I had faith in the idea. Plus, we were making $3,000 a month, so I wanted to give it the time to actually build out the game properly to see if it was any good. Step 1 was putting the password back on the website so only players in our community who knew the game was in development could try it out. This was to prevent new players from coming, having a bad first experience, then churning when we already knew the game wasn't ready. The rest of the summer and up until December, it was pure heads down grinding. We added a auction house, trading post, multiplayer dungeons, new catching flows, random events, player triggered events, more pets, more towns, more collection verticals, trinkets, and so on. The point is, we built a bunch of stuff while our community was giving us feedback on it so we could iterate. And then in parallel, we started to learn about gamification systems by studying other games, reading articles, watching YouTube videos. Shout out to GDC. And you know what? It turns out when you actually know what a game loop is, it helps quite a bit. At the start of December, we didn't feel like the game was great yet, but the core of it was miles better than it was in May. So we were ready to emerge from our stealth mode and remove the password and have new players try it again. Our aim was to launch in January because although our core was a lot better, we still need to spend about a month adding onboarding features like a tutorial, tooltips, and all the little things you need to add to a game so new players aren't super confused. But a small feature that we added in mid-December changed the course of the ship. Up until this point, Linda and I always kind of pondered how much of a game we wanted to be that was purely for fun and how much a game that we wanted to be that was more focused on helping your mental health. We initially chose to keep the game purely fun with a mental health theme, with the idea of being we get more players through the door and then the mental health theme would stir up discourse about it. The end vision was to have kids be as familiar with the words anxious and lonely as they are with Squirtle or Charmander, because step one with dealing with your emotions is actually knowing what they are. I still really like this angle, but we wanted to see what would happen if we put some explicit self-care activities into the game. So we added a feature where you could soul bond with a pet. This allowed you to get XP for your pet by writing a gratitude journal or meditating or naming an emotion you were feeling that day. To our surprise, the community loved this feature. People told us they were crying from how happy it made them and telling us that this is what they wanted from Void Pet all along. And as soon as this happened, a light bulb in my head went off. I knew the game that I had made. If you compare it to League of Legends, Call of Duty, Minecraft, any of the games people were used to playing these days, it was just not as good. And I knew that, and it didn't feel good. But I also realized if you took that same game and you compare it to other self-care apps on the market, all of a sudden VoidPet is not that far off. But there was one problem. It was a website. And as much as this was a great decision for fast development, supporting all devices, gamers love desktop things, and being able to stream it on Twitch, this was a total no-go if you wanted non-gamers to actually use it daily. I made a tweet 3 years ago that said developers want mobile websites, consumers want apps, and I stand by this. I don't want to give Apple 30% of my revenue or play inside their sandbox, but my grandma doesn't care about any of that. All she wants to do is download an app, but if you make an app for her, she'll use it all the time. So we took everything we learned from creating the web game, we condensed it into a simpler app with a slightly different target user, and then we did what we did best. We cranked out an app in 2 months. I'm going to save the breakdown of our design decisions for a separate video because I got to go fix some bugs, but this was definitely the hardest product that I've ever built. We spent a lot of time on the finer details because the game loop is a lot simpler. It was hard to make because simple is hard, but if you played Neko Atsuma, the app will feel very familiar. In case my Japanese is terrible, which probably is, it's a kitty collector game. In the meantime, the web game is not going anywhere. We took the password off of it, so if you want to check out the state of that, you can. But for now, our focus is the app. We are launching on Product Hunt today, so if you want to come to say hi there, you can. And you know I'm an ambitious guy, so my goal is to get first in the App Store in the health and fitness category, but I have no idea if that's realistic. I have no idea how many downloads you need to actually get that, so we'll just see what happens.